88 to 91 FM, BBC Radio 2.
Hello, this is Janice Long. Welcome to A Long Walk with James Dean Bradfield. I've always been a fan of the Manic Street Preachers from the moment I heard of them, and have had them on my shows several times, chatting or playing in session. And James is such a huge fan of music. I bumped into him at gigs, and we always have great conversations about stuff that we're into. So actually getting him for this series was really important for me. I could have been saying, hello, welcome Clint Eastwood, Bradfield.
Yeah, my dad's first choice for my name.
But it is James Dean Bradfield. Thanks ever so much for going on this long walk. Where are you going to be taking us?
I'm going to be taking you to the place that we played our first ever gig, the Crumlin Railway Inn, Oakdale Comprehensive, where myself, Nick, Richie and Sean, we all went to school there. Then we're going to be going to Penavon Pond, where we just sit there late at night, and we always just kind of like, you know, dream up scenarios for ourselves and come up with our credo and our ideology for being in a band. We used to sit there with Nick's brother Pat and just recite poetry to each other. And then I'm going to take you down to deep down in the Isline Valley with the playing fields, which is stuck in between where my dad lives and Isline Mountain, where we recorded our first demos.
OK, James, well, let's get going. And what should we play?
This show is all about the past, but I'm going to play something from the present. This is off the new album, International Blue.
So, Oakdale School, you were here from the age of 11. You turned up here 5 days a week. Yep. Was it a great time?
I wasn't quite confident in my own skin because I was a bit of a gawky, kind of geeky little character with a patch on my eye and glasses and really short. So the first couple of years, marred by a tiny bit of bullying, which a lot of people go through at school.
Yeah.
Then fifth year, I was kind of all right because mine and Nick's friendship had solidified and we'd bonded over so much music and stuff. Richie and Sean were in the year above. And I just said, yeah, by the time I left here, it was okay. But the first couple of years was rocky.
But the four of you, were you all quite different from everybody else at the comp?
I think Richie was the one that really stood out. Because, obviously, you being an aficionado of, like, general echo and the Bunnymen history, you know, you realise that the height of Ian McCulloch's hair probably reached its apex on Lips Like Sugar, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where it was just a big tower of hair. Well, Richie had that exact haircut at round about the 4th and 5th year.
Really?
So he'd walk down the corridors and it would be a perfect Ian McCulloch, Lips Like Sugar kind of hair.
Wow.
Perfect, absolute perfect facsimile of Ian McCulloch's hair of that period. Richie stood out. I think Sean and myself, we were just another pair of Short Valley kids. We have a lot of duds in the valley kind of thing. Nick kind of stood out because he was, he had a kind of grace about him and he was really tall. Also, there was the contradiction of him just being really good at sports. He was really good at football. He was really good at cricket. Wasn't any good at rugby.
Not like you.
I was just above average. Nick had that little kind of like a duality going to him kind of thing.
So what did you enjoy doing at school?
I loved art class, which is where me and Nick really, really solidified, you know, our relationship in terms of music. Art class with Don Watkins. He was our form teacher, so Nick was in my form class. In art class, there was a guitar. There was an acoustic guitar there. So like, I remember Nick teaching me the intro to Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Just a D chord with a hammer on. And I went and bought a guitar off Matthew Horton, who lived just down the road there. Uh-huh. For 25 quid from my paper round I saved for 3 weeks. I kind of nailed it within a month. I was showing Nick stuff. I kind of like, you know, because I think he was all right with that because he wanted to be the low-slung, sexy Paul Simon bass player, you know.
And so did you think at that moment, this is what I want to do?
Oh, yeah, completely. Toyed with a couple of things before that.
Being Napoleon?
I had actually these one of years where I handed in my Napoleon kind of project. Got top marks from my Napoleon project in French studies. No, kind of first of all, I wanted to be in the parachute regiment. Bizarre, strange, really strange.
Really?
Yeah. Then I kind of wanted to be an actor. Then I wanted to be a forestry commissioner, and then I finally settled on musician when I was about 15.
So these steps are really crucial, aren't they?
They are to me, yeah, because it's where Nick decided, oh, come on, let's give it a twirl. I'm going to put my faith in this kind of like this short, awkward little kind of guy and see if he can come up with the goods. You know, it sounds overdramatic, but it was a pivotal point, really.
And what were the lyrics he gave you?
The lyrics were a song called Aftermath, which is about the miners' strike, and a song called Antisocial, which was just generally misanthropic to the zenith degree.
Well, that was Motown Junk, and so what were you listening to at the time?
So we'd bonded over Life's a Ride with Spy vs. Spy by Billy Bragg, Ocean Rain, Hatful of Hollow, Smear Cycle and the Bunnymen, lots of early Simple Minds, lots of early Whitesnake, lots of early Rush. Yeah. So there's indie, there's like metal in there, there's kind of like this everything. Just
which is what
stuff
you are.
Like that. I'm not sure, really. I'm not sure what we are. I really hate to try and classify us because it might give me a big shock. But just lots of stuff like that. And we were just touching on Southern Death Cult and stuff like that. Yeah. I was getting into stuff like Big Flame and just I was getting into stuff, really early, quite obscure indie stuff.
It was interesting. I was walking through the streets of Cardiff because I love Cardiff. It's still got all of that corporate nonsense that I hate, but it's got all of those lovely arcades that I make a point of walking up again and again every time I come here. And I was thinking about you, obviously, because I'm coming to chat to you. And you see, when I said to you before, all of the influences you were talking about, people that you were listening to, like the Cult or like the Bunnymen, you make me want to be that person that steps up to the mic and belts out international, whatever. You know what I mean? You have that kind of sound that just drives.
I think we kind of. There's no doubt that I think we fed into a bit of an underdog spirit. It wasn't fashionable trying to be a rock and roll band from Wales at that point in history. I remember a lot of the early headlines in the Enemy, Sounds of Melody Maker, Glam Slam, and it was just lots of Welsh puns, and there was actually lots of writing saying, can a good band come from Wales anymore? Lots of stuff like that. So I think we let that spur us on. It didn't upset us. I think we thought we can actually thrive in this underdog kind of position. We can do it. I think a lot of people subsequently got into us because they felt like we were an underdog band to a certain degree.
Living around here, economically, it must have been quite an interesting time.
Well, we were living in this area when it was just on the change, really. I'm not trying to be too overly earnest here or earn good guy points, but I actually feel so lucky that I grew up here. Absolutely, I grew up in privilege. We all grew up in working class families, but we grew up in just privilege, in terms of the area. We had space to think, had space to explore. I'm so glad, for me personally, that I didn't grow up in a city. Just me and my dogs would just be roaming around for 4 or 5 hours sometimes, from the age of 7 to 18. We were always playing cricket, rugby, football, swimming in the river. We were never scared. It didn't seem like anything bad ever happened. Also, I just had lots of uncles that always seemed like on the verge of tiredness, but happy, because they all had tough jobs. A lot of them down the mines, one in the steel works. My dad was like a chippy and a roofer. Everybody seemed like really happy that their job was defining them. And they were tired, but they were happy with life. They were happy with life. Yeah. I'm not saying it was perfect, but there was a certain dignity there. But it comes to, obviously, 84, 85, 86, everything's on the turn.
Yes.
So it was, again, like school was a confusion experience. This place was confusing because suddenly from feeling safe and kind of blissfully ignorant to a certain degree of life, suddenly there were marches going past my door, and suddenly I was seeing where I grew up on TV for the first time. Because, there were people, obviously BBC and HTV coming down and filming pickets and marches and general strife.
And, in fact, just down the road is Aber Valley, isn't it?
Yeah.
Public Service Broadcasting, I know you're a huge fan of it as well.
Yeah.
They actually did their album.
They did,
down there, which you appeared on.
Yeah,
And
no.
that's all related
I
to
did.
those times.
John, from PSB is... Yeah. He's amazing, actually. I love the way he makes records. He just picks a concept and then he just buys into it and he lets it guide everything. He lets it guide the artwork, he lets it guide the music, the sound, the engineering. He just has an idea and he lets it guide the record. He's very conceptual, and I'm not using that as a dirty phrase kind of thing. He makes concept records, and I think that's really, really brave of him. But he's amazing at doing it.
So I imagine you said yes the second he asked you to be involved?
Yeah, I did, but I think I said yes when I heard a couple of tracks and just knew he was on the right track, basically. And he was, obviously he was, I kind of just knew that he would make a good record.
This is a nice spot.
It is a nice spot, yeah, kind of unpond. There's kind of like a bit of a lover's lane thing going on here.
And the rest, I can imagine.
Kind of like, well, the modern version of it is probably called something else. But when we used to come up here, myself, Nick, Richie, Sean, and sometimes Pat, Nick's brother, the playwright and poet, who was a bit of an influence on us, to be honest, because he was older than us, 3 years older than us. We used to come up here in Richie's car on dark, summer nights and wintry nights. Pat would recite some of his poems to us, or he'd recite some of kind of Jack Kerouac's haikus or some of Ginsberg's poems to us and everything. And we pretend we were the Beats.
I was going to say, you thought you were the beat poets.
We thought we were the Beats. And we invented this generation for ourselves called the Blue Generation, which was from a Tennessee Williams quote of saying that blue is the colour of distance, etc., and all that kind of stuff. But we were a bit troubled by the fact that blue was the colour of the Tories, but never mind. So we had this thing where we thought we could be half Dexies, kind of like where we could like have some sort of denialism, where we could be very, very disciplined and never take drugs and not have girlfriends. The girlfriends bit did change, unfortunately. Kind of like we strayed from the path of rock and roll didacticism. We used to come up here and just talk shop and just fantasize about what kind of unified front we were going to present to the world.
Which beat poet did you see yourself being?
I saw myself as being Jack Kerouac in The Lonesome Traveller.
Yeah.
He just went off and became a merchant seaman for a while. But kind of like I knew that Richie and Nick were the wordsmiths. I connected with the blue-collar aspirations of Jack Kerouac rather than the literary aspirations of him.
So when you went to New York for the first time, did you go to Greenwich Village?
Yeah, we did all that. And I remember myself and Sean went to New York to do an American mix of the first album, Generation Terrorists. Yeah, we went to Greenwich Village, and me and Sean especially loved a film called The Pope of Greenwich Village, which was Eric Roberts and Mickey Rourke. There was a song at the end of it called The Summer Wind by Frank Sinatra, which is one of my favourite songs ever. Could almost be my favourite song, to be honest. I remember we were watching that film when we were about 15, and then I remember when we and him went to New York with each other for the first time in late 91 or early 92 to get some mixes done. We went straight to Greenwich Village. He said, let's go to Greenwich Village to see what it's really like. You know, we saw a cop on the corner of a street eating a kind of slice of pizza. We saw steam coming out of a manhole. We saw all those things that we wanted to see, obviously.
So how creative were you at this point?
I think we were just hanging out and just BSing each other. And that's really important, you know. We were just seeing what we could get away with in terms of ideas and creating our fantasy world and trying to make it real. It's kind of creative in itself, you know. We weren't focusing on getting drunk. We were actually just saying, you know, what can we do to make ourselves better as people so we make better songs and better music? And that's kind of important, really.
And is there a track, do you think, that's synonymous with here?
Well, there's always some wild horses up here in Penavan Pond. Sometimes you nearly get absolutely steamrolled by just running wild horses, which is beautiful.
Oh, lovely.
And you see this a couple here today now.
Yes.
So kind of one of our instrumentals from the Erithmis Go era, a B-side, is called Horses Under Starlight. That was written about this place.
I mean, the new album I absolutely love. There isn't a Duff track on it. The final track is Nicky performing, isn't it? But there's a track on there that when I listened to it, and being from there, it was so poignant. It was obvious it was about Hillsborough, and it was about dignity and pride. But it's not where it started, is it, necessarily?
Obviously, we've written a song about that subject on This My Truth Tell Me Ours.
Yeah.
And the song was requisitely violent and grim, I suppose, because, you know, there had to be a real interpretation of the events and the fallout from it. When it came to write this lyric, it came from off the back of a more positive outlook about, you know, the aftermath of Hillsborough. We were just about to play Liverpool Echo Arena on the Out From Must Go reissue tour, and the ruling had just come through that the Campaign for Justice for Hillsborough, they'd won. They'd finally won, and, like, you know, I can't remember such a long campaign of just people kind of like just foisting their civic duty towards the British establishment and winning after such a long period. They won. They beat the British establishment. Lock, stock and barrel, they beat them. So we were just about to do the Liverpool Echo Arena. We had a day off in Liverpool the day before the gig, and Nick went for a walk down along the waterfront. He started connecting the dots in his head about so many things from Liverpool that had affected him, whether it be Scully, you know, whether it be Roger McGough, whether it be Echo the Bunnymen, whether it be the Magic Bar, whether it be Eloise Bop for me, you know, kind of like, you know, all these groups. He started thinking about it all, and then he said he was looking at the waterfront, which I think they've done a good job of joining the dots on Liverpool waterfront. They've done a pretty good job down there, I think. And he said he was looking at the Mersey, and he just said it was amazingly psychedelic. It was the sun was breaking through the clouds, and the way just the light was hitting it. He said the way it was almost reflecting off some of the buildings. It was just, it took on just a startling psychedelic backdrop to a city that had just won its victory. So he kind of got back to his hotel. He took lots of Polaroids. You know, he sat there at the Polaroids in his room and just made his list of all the things that he'd endlessly been inspired by that had come from Liverpool, the city. Just wrote the lyric. I think it's important to make the distinction between the song off This Is My Truth and Liverpool Revisited. You know, this is a song about victory.
It is.
You know, so it's a positive song.
With dignity.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Absolute dignity. Let's take a listen. This is Liverpool Revisited from the album Resistance is Futile. Was the new album done in the new studios?
Yeah, there was... before the tracks were started in the old studios, Faster Studios in Cardiff. We mothballed all that because obviously we lost the lease to the studio because the BBC were moving into our area, so everybody was kind of selling a plan for flats to be built. So we don't blame the BBC. It's just shop window politics. You step off the train and you see a beautiful new world, kind of which is controlled by BBC Wales. So we had to move. And to be honest, it was a bit of serendipity. I think it's good that we did move. It's good that we retreated to the countryside a bit. It's good that we just perhaps have got this last era in the band now. That kind of we know that this is our retirement home, and all our records will be made in this studio until it finishes. You know, it took us a while to get the place finished. We're busy paying it off with doing all these festivals this year and stuff. Yeah, most of the album was done indoor to the River Studios.
Because it backs onto the river, doesn't it?
Looks down on the river, and then you can see Newport in the distance. And I like that mixture of the urban and the river, and then we're set back right in the countryside.
Wasn't that a B-side?
Daughter River was, yeah. It was an extra track and a greatest hits.
Oh, that was it.
And so yes, we're kind of a bit self-referential, I suppose.
Do you socialise as a band? Do you hang out with each other, you know, post-festivals and...
No, me and Sean will have a drink once in a blue moon after a gig. No. I mean, we've been in a band with each other since we were 15.
Yeah.
I mean, we've spent countless tours with each other. Travels into Europe to play one festival, which is always 3 days out of your life. We've spent all our adult lives together and known each other from when we were born. If we all went to the pub with each other, it would be quite weird.
Yes.
You know, when we're in the studio, it's a proper working day, and we're all there, and we're doing promo. We're with each other. We're on the road. We're with each other. You get the picture, you know. We see each other more than kind of lifelong friends ever see each other.
You must be proud of the Welsh music scene at the moment. I mean, it's always been there, but I think people are taking more notice. That's what it is. I mean, doing
nice, you know,
later, you know.
Yeah, it was nice the other night with, kind of like with Boy Azuga on there and Gweno on there. I'm always a bit careful about stuff like that because I remember feeling okay about the Cool Cymru thing. I've heard people since then saying, oh, we hated being pigeonholed. And I was just like, well, do you know what? Actually, lots of Welsh bands were sending bucket loads of records. I don't think there was anything bad about it at all. I thought it was cool. I never want to pigeonhole a Welsh band into just being Welsh.
No.
But it's nice. I like to think that a band's going to really break out from Wales soon. It's been a while, but it is harder for bands to break out full stop now. No matter where you're from, it's so hard for a band to sell records. It just is. Hopefully, you know, it was great to be on the show with Gweno and Boy Azuga. I've listened to the Gweno record quite obsessively now. It was a bit of a slow burner for me, and now I'm just completely hooked into it. And Boy Azuga, you know, when I was watching them, obviously I knew about them before, you could just see they want it. They're leaving some blood on the strings when they're playing, you know?
Yes.
They're really going for it, which I kind of like. Sometimes, here you go, oh man. But sometimes I watch bands play and there's not enough... I don't feel enough potential violence in music sometimes.
I don't want to confuse people here, but I urge you to listen to the Gweno album because I think it's fantastic. She's Welsh, but it's actually Cornish.
Yes,
that she's singing Cornish.
Yeah, because she had the duality of her parents speaking Cornish and Welsh when she was young. As Nick said, you know, she's quite a multifaceted kind of like artist, you know. Yeah. It's always the possibility of some kind of weird metaphysic, astral physics kind of popping into her music, if that makes any sense.
We're in a sort of dank cellar, aren't we?
We are. We're in a dank cellar, which has seen better days, but apparently it's under renovation, and it's going to be a regular gig again, apparently.
And what's the name of this pub?
This is called the Crumlin Railway Inn, bottom of the Kendon Hill, and this is where we played our first ever gig. So in 1980... When was it? 1980, was I still in school or was I in college? No, yeah, it was 1985, I think. The stage was here at the back wall, and there wasn't a bar in here at the time, and there was around about 40 people in here, which for a room like this, it felt buzzing, you know. And I think we did Ever fallen in love with somebody you shouldn't have fallen in love with by the Buzzcocks. We did Just Like Honey by Jason Mary Chain. God Save the Queen by Sex Pistols. We did one of our own songs called Love in a Makeup Bag. Another song called Antisocial. And another song called Intellectual Monks. And then we did Teenage Kicks as well. So we did 3 of our own songs and 4 covers. There was a glass party at the end. Everybody just started smashing their beer glasses, which sounds awfully irresponsible, but it was the exuberance of Valley Youth.
It was just the equivalent of, I don't know, smashing plates in Greece.
Yeah. At least they weren't throwing at each other. And so we had to kind of like give 20 quid to the barman, cover the cost of that at the end. So it was our first gig and we were out of pocket. We thought we were going to get 15 quid and then we ended up having to give them 20. But it was great and it felt really good.
Did you feel euphoric afterwards? Were you thinking about it?
I kind of did, bizarrely. It's just like strange kind of moments of delusion when you look back at them. You know, I did feel like we had something, which is stupid, you know, because we were pretty poor. But I felt like people paid attention to us. I just felt like we had something together as a band, you know.
Am I right to talk about Richie?
Yeah, go for it, yeah. So Richie wasn't in the band at this point.
Right, so he didn't join till...
He didn't join till Nick went on to Swansea University. So we all knew of each other, you know, Teddy Edwards, as we used to call him. We all went to the same school, as you said earlier. But when Nick went down to Swansea University to do politics, Richie was already down there a year before. They hooked up and started hanging out with each other because he used to play football a lot with each other. Up in Gosshardsfield, the bra factory kind of thing, up in Springfield. I remember Nick saying, you know, I really think we should try and get him in the band kind of thing. And I was open to the idea straight away. The only problem was Richie, he just couldn't play guitar that much at all. I mean, really quite bad sometimes. But that was the vision we had for the band. We didn't care about that because we knew, number one, Nicky had found a foil to write lyrics with, and when they wrote lyrics together, it was amazing. They used to trade lines with each other across the table. It was brilliant. And suddenly you had a visual partner for Nick. You know, he had the 2 flying wingers either side of, like, you know, me. They just looked amazing together. They were amazing interviews. So kind of like, it was just like, that's it, he's in the band. From the first year of Swansea University, that's when the lineup of the band settled.
Did you ever feel as though he was really troubled?
Yeah, at some points, but never to the degree of going missing, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah, there'd been events where we knew something was happening, but we thought things had calmed down. We'd stopped everything and we'd cancelled things, and we'd given him exit routes in terms of you don't have to come on tour, the band doesn't have to carry on, or you could just be like, you know, the member that just writes and just, like, you know, and does the artwork and everything and all that, and, you know, you just never even have to be on stage. You don't have to worry about that. Or there were so many little plans there which we thought he'd take up one of the options, but he didn't, you know, obviously subsequently, you know, kind of you went missing. So we were very, very young. You're much more observant when you're older, aren't you? You know, and you kind of push things under the rug when you're a bit younger, and you don't have the confidence in your own judgment. Your perception is not as quite as acute as it is when you get older.
So when he went missing, did you think he'll come back one day?
I did for a while, but then after a year I thought, no. So.
And the family were great, weren't they? They were carrying on.
They were. Unfortunately, his mother passed away lately. So kind of like, it's something I don't theorise about anymore. No. And I try not to rake the emotional coals of it, I suppose, really. It's the only way I can put it, I suppose.
Well, it would be good to play something that Richie was, responsible for writing. What do you reckon?
I knew that he loved this lyric, and again, it's a B-side, but a lot of our fans' favourites tend to be some of our B-sides sometimes. He loved this lyric, and I think he liked the way it turned out when we wrote the music to it. It's called Donkeys.
So we're at a football pitch, but on the way to the football pitch, we passed a really interesting mill.
Yeah, Geckley Royce, kind of just mill. It's where he used to buy my rabbit food from. It's kind of the first place in Britain to receive the SOS call from the Titanic, the family that used to run it. He was pen pals with Marconi, obviously the famous Italian radio kind of maker. And they had a correspondence, so he had an amazing radio set that he'd built, which was just getting radio signals from around the world, and he was the first. Nobody would believe him, kind of thing, and it still hasn't been accredited to it, but the stories are there. You know, he was walking around town just going, the Titanic is sunk, and there's no way he could have known it, so he did get the SOS call. So that's a bit of tourism for you in the Isloin Valley.
And we're on a football pitch now.
Yes, so it's just kind of in between the valley here, so up on the ridge up there is where my dad still lives, where I grew up. You got Manic mountain in the distance there, so it's all just really significant places. We had the outdoor Lido over there where me and Sean We spent all our summers from the age of 4 till 15 every summer there. My mum was working there for 2 summers. That meant I got to stay behind and swim until like 9 o'clock at night. We always played cricket, rugby and football here. Remember Nick? He played for Oakdale Red Star. It was a really glamorous name for his football team, Oakdale Red Star.
What was yours?
I was actually on the bench. It was against Pont. And it was the only time I remember thinking, I wanted Nick to fail because they were playing us kind of thing. But he was a great footballer, Nick was. He was like Alan Hansen. He used to stand on the halfway line with his hands on his hips, directing the traffic kind of thing. Very commanding. But we used to play cricket down here all the time. Me and Sean were always in the Sahawi River. We used to go fishing. We used to catch rainbow trout all the time in the river there. Just catch lots of eels and take them home and just grill them and everything. But trout and lamb are my 2 favourite foods because I used to get trout from the river and lamb from the mountain. And I remember going to Patagonia 4 years ago, and my first 4 meals were just, the only thing on offer was lamb and trout. I was like, oh God, there really is a Welsh settlement here, kind of thing. Yeah, so the outdoor swim bars, played sport all summer here. I pretended I was Derek Randall, kind of one of my favourite cricketers on this pitch many a time. And then there was the Dram Road. You had pits all the way up this valley, and the Dram Road is where all the drams just come from the pits and come from underground and taken to the end of this road, down to the docks down in Newport and Cardiff. So I was walking my dogs around here all the time. And then the latter day history is we recorded our first demos on Monday Slime Mountain, kind of in a studio up there. I remember it's the first time that myself, Nick and Sean were in the studio together, and we were putting mics on a drum kit and mics on an amplifier, and I was in front of a proper microphone and being asked to sing a song more than once. And it's just up there in the mountain in the distance, and it's almost like the cradle of everything for me, really.
Isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. And just endless summers of just feeling like nothing could go wrong.
But what an idyllic childhood living here.
It's amazing. It was kind of a privileged working class upbringing. It's just absolutely amazing. A bit depressing to see a bit of lit around today, unfortunately. But if anybody thinks that's me being grumpy and old, I would have said that when I was 12. But just amazing. Just absolute just luck that I was born here, really.
So do you remember any of the tracks that you did up in that studio?
Yes, I do. We did a song called Repeat, which was on the first album, which was our Republican tirade. And then there was a song called Generation Terrorists, which obviously became the title of the first album. Yeah. And then the title changed of this song, Generation Terrorists, to Stay Beautiful. So the very first demo of Stay Beautiful was done up on the mountain there with Tony and Glenn, who were 2 really good chaps that helped us record it. A few other songs up there as well we did, but it was exciting. It was just really exciting. And again, just an absolute preposterous sense of confidence that we had. Even when the demos weren't sounding that good, we knew there was something. If he just polished it up a bit or just dug around, we knew there was something good there. And I remember we met with Steve Brown, who produced the first album. Yeah. He sat down and he said, I like the way you guys look. I've read everything about you. I just want you have good songs. He said, as long as you've got good songs, everything's going to be fine. As long as the chorus doesn't have F off right in the middle of it, everything's going to be all right. And Generation Terrorists, which became Stay Beautiful, had F off right in the middle of the chorus. And I remember just switching the tape off going, are you joking? How did you do that? He said, so it was all little moments like that which were really nice. We met great people along the way and they helped us, despite the fact that we had just like swearing in the middle of choruses and stuff.
James, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much indeed for taking the time and showing us all of these fascinating places that are a part of your past and present. Yes. It's been a real great time. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And should we have a final tune by somebody else, maybe?
Yeah. When I'm just stood here, it just takes me back to the summer of 1987, when Public Enemy had taken Nation of Millions to hold us back out. And that album, along with Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses, those 2 records had such a massive effect on me. And I remember Sean hated me listening to metal, but he loved me listening to Public Enemy. So I'd always put on this song and he'd be like, yeah, that's more like it. And I remember just thinking, God, if we can just get the kind of the glamour and the power of Guns N' Roses and the political credo and inventiveness of Public Enemy, we'd be the perfect band. So, I'm going to play Bring the Noise by Public Enemy.
James, thank you. The Great Western, going solo, what was that like for you?
It doesn't bring back any terrible memories or any great memories. It was just something I decided to do, which is probably not the best MO to do something. It's something I decided to do because Nick and Sean decided that we needed to take a break. And more than anything, we need to give the audience a break from us. And we did. And we just made Lifeblood, and we knew that it was a bit of a... Even though some people really liked that album as a post... kind of like modern, kind of like existentialist, kind of like, monolithic tract of not knowing what it is. we did realise it was a bit of a wrong turn and we couldn't do that record again. I remember the day they said, we're probably not going to do anything for nearly 2 years. I just panicked. I was just, oh my God, what am I going to do? If I really go full up my garden for 2 weeks, it'll be done. So I decided to do a solo record. And I don't look back on it with any negative or really positive feelings. I just did it.
I think it was Sean that actually said, somebody said to him, what have you learned from it? He said, never to do it again.
Yeah. It was weird. Just the actual mechanics of just playing on stage with different musicians was interesting. And some nights it was great, but I never achieved any kind of telepathy with another musician that I do with Nick and Sean.
Yeah.
Or even Richie when he was on stage with us, because sometimes, just obviously Richie was so important visually on stage. And sometimes I would just get a feeling off Richie that, he was having a great gig and that I would feed off that. And I just couldn't get that bond with other musicians on the solo tour. Some nights were great and they were interactive, but it just wasn't the same.
No.
I suppose that was the point. It wasn't supposed to be the same, really.
No. I loved the album. I played tracks from it. I thought it was great. I must ask, the Great Western, is that the pub, the train? Is it a Great Western, or are you the Great Western?
No, it was the journey back.
Yeah.
And it was me trying to get back home, basically, because when I did that record, I was already just wanting to come back to Cardiff. At that point, I was living in Cardiff and London, but I just wanted to get back. So I think part of it was about that journey. I was always taken back on the train all the time, and just whenever I was in London, after a week, it'd always come back, and I always wanted to go back west all the time. And it's funny, because, people in Wales say, Wales isn't west, West Wales is west, kind of thing. But whenever I was in London, and it's no detriment of London at all. Whenever I was there, I'd started to feel like I just needed to go west, back to Wales all the time. So it was just all about that.
Well, didn't you move nearer and nearer to the M4?
I did, yeah. I went from Edgware Road, Notting Hill, Shepherd's Bush, Chiswick. So it's a straight plot over to the M4, basically.
But Chiswick is real media territory as well, isn't it?
It is, yes, it is, yes. It's kind of like they mourn the loss of me leaving there, the little kind of blue-collar utilitarian ditch digger.
I tell you who I used to bump into all of the time when I lived there, Tim Lovejoy.
Oh, Timmy Boy, I liked him. He's a good lad.
Yes.
He's a good lad, Yes, we met him on Sunday brunch a couple of weeks back.
I know you did.
Him and Nick always have a good footballing sparring conversation.
I thought it was funny you doing the cookery bit.
I'm a good cook.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm amazing, but I'm well above average. I'm all right.
Good.
I know how to separate my egg yolks. I know how to kind of I know how to bread a chicken escalope. I know how to do a roast. I know how to make a Yorkshire pudding. I know how to do a roux.
Oh, you can go on Celebrity MasterChef.
Nick will hate this bit. Because Nick's big theory is the better the food culture's got in Britain, the worse music has got, which is actually true.
People are concentrating more on their stomachs than they are on their music.
It is. It's just the festisation of just leisure pursuits. I really kind of value the amazing ordinary. Like, you find a calf that just does a good cowl or a good scouse or just some good dishes. I don't need tongue and groove in it so I can pretend I'm in New England or something.
I complained the other week. I said, this board is full of cracks. I want a plate. And she said, no, it's rustic. I said, it's unhygienic. That's what it is. It's horrible.
We will kind of reshape the world in our own retrogressive image. Rugby was always my number one sport. It was always rugby, boxing, athletics, football, cricket. The order it always went in, but I still watch way too much football for my own good. Yeah, we always broke the rules. We were kind of nerdy indie kids that were really into sport, which kind of broke the record under the indie code of ethics. You weren't allowed to really lose your mind and have bloodlust in sporting moments because it was seen as something that was just a bit brutal and a bit obscene. But we always believed in the lifeblood that sport is.
Talking about boxing, you love of boxing. So you used to run one way down a hill, right? Yeah. And who was running up the other way?
So I was the Kendon Hill, which is, as the crow flies, about a mile from your... I used to do a 6-mile circuit about 4 or 5 times a week. So it was all the way up to Oakdale, then over the top here, and then down the Kendon Hill to Crumlin. When you got up to Oakdale and when you got to the top of the Kendon Hill, you was always relieved because you knew it was a long hill down, and it was a bit of relief. But somebody started spoiling that relief because somebody started running up the hill faster than I was going down it. Proper rocky actions with the hood up and, kind of shadow boxing just coming up the hill towards me. Happened about 5 times. It was draining the life out of me, Every time I got on the Kendon Hill, I'd be thinking, I hope he's not here. And just as I get to the bottom, he'd be shooting up it. Anyway, cut to about 2.5 years later, I was working in the Newbridge Memorial Hall as a barman. And this kid comes up to the bar. He is that git that's been coming up the hill faster than I'm going down it. And I was just like, you're that kid who comes up the Kendon Hill. You said hello to me once. You went, oh, yeah, you're rubbish, you are. I said, number one, you're too young, you can't have a drink. Number two, get out of here. You ripped my heart out, you did. He's, oh, come on. I was like, all right, you know. Subsequently, you know, years later, that person was Joel Kazaki. He came to our school in Oakdale, which was outside of his area. He came to our school because he was suffering from bullying in his town. He only took up boxing because I suppose he wanted to get some confidence because of the bullying, etc. Or perhaps he just loved boxing. Yeah, it was amazing to actually just see him come up that hill and he was taking life so seriously. He was on his own all the time, as people who do boxing training are usually. He was so into it, so focused and so serious about it. I was really impressed with that. Because being in the band is a massive frame of just like, for want of a better phrase, teamwork and just being collaborative. I've always had to prepare myself outside of the band. I've always had to spend a long time on my own and take life quite seriously, whether it be just reading something or just copying something on guitar and practicing it and trying to write a song, trying to write another song, going for a walk, coming back and thinking you can write a perfect song at 3 o'clock in the morning. All those moments on your own are really important. And it's really impressive. I remember just seeing Joel Kazak just running up that hill endlessly, just taking his ambition so seriously and just doing it on his own, which I think is really important. You know, people need to be with each other all the time these days.
Yeah.
You know, and they need contact with each other all the time. But you need to spend time on your own. You really do.
But I remember you saying to me years ago, I'll be the one that never gets married. I'll be standing outside having a fag and a whiskey. I'll be the smelly uncle.
Well,
that's not true, is it?
Thank God that didn't come true. Thank God that didn't come true. Yeah, I think I did really equate having to write music with just having to be on your own all the time. Thank God that's changed a bit now. Because I put all the years in of being quite focused on just trying to learn new stuff on the guitar. But thank God that's changed, because I'd be creating endless side projects that nobody listened to if I was married. And of course, yeah, I've loved it. My family are amazing. So
I was going to say it must be absolutely gorgeous now, and it obviously is. And you talk about your kids and Milan. Are they aware of what you do, the kids?
I think they are a bit. Well, my daughter is, but I don't think she's bothered.
No,
she's not bothered.
No. I don't think you're an embarrassment yet.
Not yet, but it's coming. It's coming.
It's your job to embarrass your children.
Yeah, no, it is, yeah. And just the 1992 pictures of the big pink fur jacket, you know, that's going to cause a lot of pain.
I think, now, I remember you coming through Paddington Station wearing that.
Yeah, it was off our press office at Cafe St. Luce. I had a long-term loan of it for a year, and I loved that coat.
Yeah,
it was the only bit of proper glamour puss stuff that I ever carried off. Right?
Really?
Yeah, it was.
And you didn't get to keep it?
No, I had to give it back.
Oh.
And I actually got pulled in Canadian Customs, actually. They said, yeah, sir, is that made out of real animal kind of fur? And I went, yeah, pink giraffe, mate. He went, come with me, sir.
Oh, no.